Well, good morning. Well, if we haven't met before, my name is Ethan Cunningham, and I work over at Liberty Heights Church. But I've had the opportunity to preach here quite a few times up until this point. And so if you are a new face, it is good to be here with you. And if you are a returning face, it is even better to see you. Well, aside from working at Liberty Heights Church, I'm also a middle school history and Bible teacher. That was less of a statement and more of a prayer request, if anything. And so 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to teach 8th grade U.S. history. And so that starts all the way with the Pilgrims and ends about at the Civil War. And so if you fell asleep throughout history class, I'll keep this intro short for you. Well, the story of the friendship of Mrs. Ulysses S. Grant and Mrs. Jefferson Davis is a fascinating one. So born in Missouri, which is a border state, Julia Grant marries Ulysses before the Civil War. And so as he is progressing in his ranks in the army and he's growing in leadership, so does their relationship and her companionship as a confidant to him in his military expeditions. And so as the tensions are increasing in the Civil War, he is eventually named General of the Union. Julia would later become the First Lady during his 2 terms serving as the United States President. In 1845, Varnia Howell married the much older Senator Jefferson Davis. And so she worked closely with him, and as his career advanced, she stuck with him. She aided him along his efforts. And so as the conflicts between the North and the Southern states started to increase, many of the Southern states decided to come up with a plan. They would no longer be a part of the United States of America, but instead their plan was to secede and become their own country known as the Confederate States of America. And of those Confederate states, they had elected that if this plan works out, that Jefferson Davis would be the president. And so as the Civil War went on and as tensions increased, Davis and Grant were considered to be mortal enemies. They're fighting on opposite sides of the Civil War. And this war was one of the bloodiest in American history. By the end of the war, 620,000 Americans died in battle. That was 2% of the population. And if you put that 2% on America's current population, that would result in 6 million deaths. But 28 years after the war had ended, both Jefferson Davis and Ulysses S. Grant had died, leaving Julia and Varnia widows. And so one night, there was an event at West Point where conveniently their hotel rooms were right next door to each other. And so on that night, Julia went up to the door of Varnia, knocked on the door, and invited herself in. And that night started a long friendship between these 2 widows that would last even to their death. And even after they died, their daughters remained close friends even unto their passing. And so I'm going to argue that if the 2 widows from the opposing sides of the Civil War can reconcile a relationship, my guess is that we might have a chance. And here's the reality, is that for Christians, reconciling broken relationships is by definition modeling the gospel. 2 Corinthians 5:18 says, "All this is from God, who through Christ reconciled himself to us and gave us the ministry of reconciliation." And so turn with me this morning to Genesis 32 as we continue in our epic series. And in this series, we are looking at the 100 key texts from Genesis to Revelation. And so last week, you heard about these brothers known as Jacob and Esau. And so these 2 brothers were the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. And so Jacob was not the greatest character, wasn't the greatest brother, wasn't the greatest son. And so what he did is he worked alongside his mother to Rebekah to steal this birthright, this inheritance, this family blessing from his brother Esau. And so just imagine, you're promised this large inheritance, that the family name is going to continue with you, and that's ripped from you. I mean, you know the screaming matches I've had with my siblings after they've taken the food I hid in the fridge? It's ugly. And so obviously Esau is incredibly upset by Jacob doing this, by him stealing what is rightfully his, that he says that he is going to kill Jacob. And so Jacob, obviously not a fan of this plan, runs away. And so he lives in this land, and he has a variety of just bizarre situations, unfortunate circumstances, but where we're going to pick up today is 20 years later. And it's in those 20 years of hardship and isolation and being away from his homeland that God has been working on Jacob's heart to restore this broken relationship. And so God makes these promises to Jacob, and he says that if you do this, I will be faithful to you, even though you have not been faithful to me. And so 20 years have passed since Jacob initially stole that birthright from Esau and fled, and that's where we're going to find ourselves this morning. So if you would, look with me at chapter 32, starting in verse 3. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen and donkeys and flocks, male servants and female servants, and I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and so he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 camps, thinking if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left can escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, because he may come and attack me and the mothers and with their children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which cannot be numbered for a multitude. And so what I love about the story of Jacob and Esau is it shows that even the most damaged, broken, messed up, and messy relationships can be reconciled with God's help. You see, over the years, I have heard countless times people say sentiments similar to this. Man, I just can't forgive them. When I think about what they did to me, what they put me through, the pain that I endured, there is no way that I could ever move past that. Man, when I think about the thought of having a relationship with them again, I just can't do it. And here's what I'm going to say. I agree. But I'm not going to ask this morning what you were able to do, but what I am going to ask you is to allow Christ to empower you to do what you could not and would not do left to your own sinful heart, but I'm going to invite you to allow the power of the Holy Spirit indwelling in you and the power of the gospel to transform your heart and fix your broken relationships. I mean, I don't understand how a person can think that Jesus can forgive all of their past sins, but cannot restore a broken relationship. I mean, that kind of posture, that kind of mindset is saying, God, I believe you have the power to raise Jesus from the dead, but I do not believe you have the power to move beyond my past hurt. And so we know that the Spirit is more than able to help fix our broken relationships, but at the same time, we also have to be willing to make some choices along the way. And lucky for us, a lot of those choices are modeled in the story of Jacob and Esau in Genesis chapters 32 and 33. And so we're going to look at several actions that reconciliation is going to require, the first of which is to accept responsibility. Accept responsibility. You see, Jacob is a master manipulator who only focuses on himself. Every decision that he is making is for his own benefit. Doesn't matter how it impacts other people. It doesn't matter what's going to cost others. It doesn't matter what even it's going to look like in the future. all Jacob cares about is what will work for him in the present. I mean, think about it. His brother is promised this birthright, this inheritance, all of this family things that they've built up for generations. Jacob steals it. Jacob doesn't care how it impacts Esau. Instead, he is focused on what serves him most. But here's the good news. It is this same type of imperfect person that God still has a plan for. You see, if you look at all of Jacob's descendants throughout the generations, you know who you're going to find in there? Jesus. And it's not because Jacob was this perfect person and it made sense that Jesus would come from his line. And so while Jacob did not get everything right, what he did do good at is being willing to own up where he messed up, where the relationship went south. Now, if you were reading along with those verses carefully, what you'll notice is that Jacob never gives a verbal confession in verses 3 through 5. He doesn't have this long dialogue of, I messed up, I did wrong, Esau, I stole from you, I don't deserve to be in your presence. We don't see that verbal confession. But while we don't see a verbal confession, we see that his actions clearly point to that. You see, he's offering up all of these things ahead. He's offering these oxen and these camels and these donkeys and these servants, and he is saying, hey, I'm sorry. I stole from you. I took what was rightfully yours, and so because of the deep guilt I have over that, take these as gifts. Now, if we're to be really cynical on this, because we're pretty good at that in society, we could say, well, of course Jacob's going to do this because Esau might kill him. And so he's trying to sweeten the deal. He's trying to butter him up. I mean, Genesis 27:41, it says, now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, when the days of mourning for my father are done, so when my father dies and that grieving period is over, then I will kill Jacob. Like, this is serious stuff. But I think when we read the text as it's given in the order of verses, we see that Jacob is not offering things out of fear. He's offering them out of remorse. Verses 3 through 5, he's saying, hey, I'm coming, Esau, I'm coming to see you. And here is all of these things. It's only in the later two verses 6 through 7, that he then finds out that Esau is coming with 400 men. You see, Jacob feels deep remorse over this because in these 20 years, God has been slowly breaking and reforming his heart to acknowledge where he messed up in the relationship. Let me share something that stuck with me. I heard a few years ago. There is no such thing as a lasting relationship that has not required multiple points of forgiveness. And do you know why that is? It's because relationships are incredibly hard. Because my sinful heart is riddled with pride, and what pride wants to do is build myself up, not serve other people. It is the opposite of humility, right? This is the model that we see in Jacob's early life. And here's the warning sign that pride has taken root in your heart. It's that in the process of broken relationships and reconciliation, you are more concerned about being right than you are about being reconciled. Right? I am more focused on, hey, but at least I won the argument. But at least what I did was mostly right. No. The focus is not being right. It's being reconciled. And we see this clearly. I'll give an example. Marriage. Okay. Marriage is inherently going to be a difficult thing. Because, I don't know if you knew this or not, you're a sinner. I mean, I am too, but like, you probably more, I'm just going to leave now, actually. So you have a sinner, right? You have this wicked, selfish heart, and what wicked, selfish hearts wants to do is whatever feels good in the moment, okay? And when you get married, you're going to marry someone just like that. Now, I love my wife. She's not like that, but for everyone else. And so you have two people who do not always see eye to eye, who are going to see things differently, and that's going to lead to a lot of conflict. It's going to lead to a lot of moments where you're going to have to say, hey, I'm sorry. Like, for some reason, we don't always see eye to eye, even when we love them deeply. Like, I don't know why my wife doesn't want to watch all 3 parts of the Dark Knight trilogy. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Lord, we pray for forgiveness in this house. So let me give a marriage tip, guys. I've been married 2 years, so take this for what it is. But every morning when you wake up, I want you to look over at your wife, and I want you to say, "I'm sorry." And she's going to ask you, "Well, what for?" And you'll say, "I'm not sure yet, but there's a good chance I'm going to do something stupid later." You see, we have to have this approach in our hearts in the road to reconciliation, in these broken relationships, where we have to be humble and say, "I don't do everything right. I mess up." But the point isn't to double down on that, it's to approach the situation with humility. Jacob has to take ownership that 20 years ago he deeply wronged Esau. And it was time to own up for his mistake. And this cannot be a passive thing. You cannot just feel sorry about it. You have to face it. Because you cannot fix what you are not willing to face. But the second thing that reconciliation is going to require is preparing your heart through prayer. Let me tell you why prayer is such an essential part of reconciliation. There's 2 reasons. The first is that prayer is aligning my heart with God's. It's saying, "God, I know how I naturally feel about this situation. I know the emotions that I feel. I know the sin that's in my heart. But God, I am asking that you would transform it and align it with yours." And we know clearly what we read in 2 Corinthians 5 is that God has a heart towards reconciliation. And so that's the first part. But here's the second reason. I think we've all heard stories of people saying, "Man, if I could go back and I would probably have done it differently. Man, I wish I didn't say that. If I could go back in time and I could change it, I would," but they never move past that point. You see, it's very easy for us to confess our sins, but we never move towards the point of repentance and reconciliation. And the reason behind that, what I think, is what's called the fear of forgiveness. That if I forgive them, if I open up and I let my walls down and I forgive this person, I don't know what's going to come from that. What if they view me as a doormat that can be walked all over? What if people think I'm foolish for allowing this person back into my life? What if I get hurt again? These are real and genuine fears that we are going to face in this process of reconciliation. And they're normal human fears and emotions. But as a Christian, what the Bible tells us is that we are to take every thought and fear captive and bring them to God in prayer. In verse 6, it says that Esau is coming to Jacob with 400 men. And we learned back in Genesis 27, he said that when the time of my father's mourning is over, I'm going to kill Jacob. Now, we don't know why Esau has these 400 men, right? It could be because he does want to go and kill Jacob. It could be because at this time when you had to travel long distances, you risked being attacked, and so maybe he brought extra protection with him. Maybe even he was saying, "Hey, Jacob, I know that you stole from me all those years ago, but look what I've built. Look what I've done." And so while we don't know exactly why Esau brings these 400 men, that's all speculation. What isn't speculation is how Jacob felt about it. Verse 7, very clearly, it says that Jacob is deeply afraid. He's terrified. His brother, who he stole everything from, is coming to him with 400 men. And while initially he tries to come up with this plan to minimize the damages, right? Initially he's like, well, if I divide this into 2 camps, if he attacks one, the other one can be safe. But what this fear ultimately leads him to is dependent prayer. Look at verses 11 and 12. He's praying to God and he's saying, "Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he might come and attack me and the mothers and the children. But God, you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offsprings as the sands of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. You see, verse 12 is both humorous but impactful. You see, in verse 11, he is saying, God, I'm terrified. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. You told me to go and you told me to reconcile and return to my father's land, fix this broken relationship. But God, there are 400 men coming with him. And last I heard, he wants to kill me. And then in verse 12, he's like, but God, you did promise that I would have a lot of descendants and that they would be numbered like the sands of the sea. So God, I don't really know how you're going to work that one out. But here's what's so impactful about this, is he's asking God in humility. He's saying, God, I don't know the outcome, but what I'm praying for is that you act according to your character. God, you're a promise-keeping God. I mean, he prays, he says, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, because he's remembering all the times that God has spoken and kept his promises. I mean, look at verses 9 and 10. He says, and Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. See, I'm not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you've shown to your servant. He's coming to this place of humility. He's saying, God, I messed up. What I did was wrong. And God, I'm afraid of the consequences of this. Like, God, I'm not trying to play tough. I'm not trying to twist your arm. God, I fear, but I know what you have promised me. God, I know that in this circumstance, though my emotions lean this way, I know what your character is. You see, when we are on the road of reconciliation, trying to fix these broken relationships with others, these are emotions we're going to feel. You're going to feel fear. You're going to feel anxiety. But hear me this morning. Spiritually immature people are going to react based on their emotions, whereas spiritually mature people are going to react and respond based on their convictions. You see, in our convictions as Christians is to commit ourselves to belief that the gospel has the power to transform and change any heart, go beyond any fear of forgiveness, and restore any broken relationship. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And it's going to be hard. There are going to be times where you are praying to God saying, God, I don't know why you've put me in this circumstance. I feel like I'm wrestling with you in this moment. I don't get it. But here's the good news, is that you're not alone. I look at verses 22 through 30. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, speaking Jacob, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. And he took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint upon just a touch, and wrestled with him. And then he said, let me go, for the day is broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. And then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there he blessed him. And so Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. Now, arguably, this is a weird passage, and there's a lot of debates about this passage. And so I'm going to hold to the opinion, and if you disagree with me, it's okay to be wrong, but I'm going to hold to the opinion that this is what is called a Christophany. And here's what that word means. A Christophany is an appearance in the Old Testament of Jesus. And here's why I think that. Jesus says in the Gospels, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. And what does Jacob say in these verses? He says, I have seen God face to face. Now, while we can argue about the different interpretations of this text, here is what is undeniable. is that Jacob's physical struggle with the angel of the Lord represents the spiritual struggle within him. But here's the outcome of this. God does not just wrestle with him and allow him to go through this. God changes and transforms his heart and his identity. When he says, hey, what is your name? And he responds, Jacob, God changes his name to Israel. And what he's doing is it's not just giving him a different name. He is signifying a change in identity. The name Jacob translated to deceiver. So if your name's Jacob, sorry. I mean, it might be fitting, I don't know. But God changes his name to Israel, which means one who struggles with God. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that's like an upgrade, but if you want to change your name, hey, go for it. Go for it. But in all seriousness, when you are willing to wrestle with God in the midst of that struggle, when you're willing to go through the difficulties, God has the ability to transform your heart and change your identity from someone who holds on and clings to bitterness to one who extends mercy. And that leads us to our last stop on the road to reconciliation, which is to believe in the power of the gospel to change hearts. Now, I want everyone to listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because I'm guilty of this. If you have ever looked at someone and genuinely believed, man, I just don't think they're ever going to change. I mean, I've known them for this long. I know what they're like. I don't think they're ever going to change. They're always going to be this way. If you genuinely believe that, let me tell you this morning, you do not understand the full scope of the gospel. If your view of the gospel is that the purpose is that Jesus forgave me of my past sins and prepares a future place for me, then you do not understand the full scope of it. The gospel does not just apply to my past and my future, it applies to the transformation of my heart in the present. Let me show you how I know this. Jacob's entire life up until this point is about deceit and manipulation and selfishness, and yet he has a complete change of heart. He demonstrates what love actually is, which is self-sacrifice. Look at chapter 33, verses 1 and 2. And Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female servants, and he puts the servants with their children in front, and then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. You see, what this shows us is he's still wrestling with this nature. He's like, I'm gonna arrange my camp to be in this specific order to minimize damages. But what he does next shows a clear change of heart. It then says, he went himself before all of them, and he bowed down on the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother, Jacob. This master manipulator, deceiver, the one who has wrestled with God, has had a change of heart and identity. I mean, he knows that Esau is coming towards him. There are 400 men, and instead of trying to do what's best for him, he lays down his life. He goes before Esau and says, I'm here. Whatever it is that you're going to do to me, go for it. Right? What I did was wrong. And that acceptance and that self-sacrifice, that's what humility is. And if Esau really was coming with all of those men to kill him, it must be this moment that he has a change of heart. Because look at verse 4. It's talking about Esau. It says, but Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Like Jacob is just on the ground, and Esau at this moment has every right to say, hey, you deserve everything that's coming towards you. Right? Do you understand how you wronged me, what you took from me? Do you know the pain that you have brought in my life? And so you think you can just come here and be friends? Esau has every right to do that, but that's not what he does. he comes alongside of Jacob and they weep together, overwhelmed by what God has done in terms of reconciling their relationship together. Because do you know the people who understand mercy the best, who can extend it the most? It's the people who have realized how much mercy has been given to them. Listen, I don't know what kind of pain and hardship people have put you through, but what I can confidently say is no one has put any greater pain than that was experienced with Jesus. And so it was our sin that put him on the cross, but it was our love that kept him there. That is the level of love that we need to have in reconciling our relationships with other people. Right? When I realize the mercy that God has given me, the relationship that he has reconciled, that even when I was dead in my sins, he died on my behalf. You see, Esau forgave Jacob even though he didn't deserve it. And he doesn't try to leverage this like, hey, what you did to me was wrong, so now you're in debt to me. In fact, Jacob tries to give him all of these gifts. And Esau says in verse 9, he says, I have enough. Keep what you have. I'm not trying to get something out of this relationship. I'm not trying to have you pay back what you stole from me. We're back to being brothers. Now, eventually, Jacob continues to persist out of this remorse. He says, no, I need you to take it. I need you to accept this. And Esau eventually does. And here's why that's significant. Because in this culture, you only received gifts from a friend, not an enemy. You see, this is what reconciliation looks like here. He's not saying, hey, I forgive you and we're even now. Right? We're nothing. We can move on. He goes one step further and views him as a friend and a brother. Was that because Esau was just this stand-up moral character who did everything right? No. It's because God transformed his heart to be softened to the point that he says, I know what was done to me, but I know what I've done to God is much greater, and that same mercy that God has demonstrated to me, that's what I'm to extend to others. And guys, that is just as true for us this morning. Listen, there is no doubt in my mind that there are broken relationships, and honestly, they have probably been more wrong to you than you've been wrong to them. But here's what we have to understand. Based on our own merits, based on my track record, when I stand before God, I'm terrible. There is no redeeming quality about me. And yet, God looked at me with love, died on my behalf, and during the full wrath of God, so that my relationship with him could be reconciled. And that's not something to hold inside. It's not something to puff yourself up with. That is a gift to give to others. And so my challenge this morning is that we recognize the great sin that we have committed against God day after day after day. Think about the mercy that was given to us and apply that same love and kindness and faithfulness to those who have wronged us. Because listen, no one is too far gone from the gospel. I mean, even when we were dead in our trespasses, God raised us from the dead. And so any person's heart can change. But in the meantime, I ask that we ourselves have our hearts transformed day after day after day. Church, would you pray with me this morning?